Welcome back to another episode of Uncommon Wealth, the show where we dive into the mindsets, moves, and mechanics behind building generational wealth. Today on the podcast, we've got Bret Kinghorn, co-founder of DPW Benefits, a veteran-led team born from multiple mergers into a firm that helps mid-market employers unlock tax efficiency and fund executive retention via creative benefits designs. Bret brings nearly 3 decades in group benefits consulting experience and has built a legacy-minded business rooted in long-term stewardship and client trust. So Bret, let's start from the beginning. Can you share a little backstory on how did the business come to life and what did those really early years start to look like?
So my father was in the insurance business, and when I was graduating from college, I was just looking for a sales job. And he gave me a couple of contacts he had with a couple of insurance companies and said, look, I'm not going to go pull favors for you. You need to get a job on your own merits. And so I went and got a job with an insurance carrier, worked for 5 years. My dad was working for the country's largest third-party administrator, paying medical claims. They were acquired in 1997, and in the acquisition, he got riffed. So job eliminated. He was 57. I was just thinking about that this weekend. And he approached me and said, hey, what would you think about starting our own benefits agency? And I said, no, thanks. I like what I'm doing. Happy in my job, but I appreciate you asking. A couple months later, my company notified me they were going to close our office and I would have to move from Salt Lake City to Denver. And I said, Dad, are you still interested? I think I want something different to do. And so we actually opened our doors in early 1998. And you mentioned through some acquisition, that's kind of how we got started. We made an acquisition from his former employer. And then from there, we've kind of just built our model around how do you help the client every time? When you do that, you seem to win. And we've found some other like-minded people that we've partnered with. And in some cases, we've just acquired business from people that were retiring. And so that's kind of how we got to where we are.
And now that the business is obviously mature and operating at scale, what's been the hardest part about staying out of the day-to-day while still growing, but protecting what you've built?
That's a great question. And one of the things that my dad said, and I hope this doesn't offend anyone, but he said, you have to let $10 employees do $10 an hour work. And what he meant by that is there's a lot of things that you can do and you'll probably do better than some of the people that work in your office, but you have to empower them and let them do it so that you can do things that they can't. And so to me, it took me a while to understand what he really meant by that. I've been fortunate. I have 4 sisters. 3 of them have worked for me through the years. And I currently have one working for me, and I just have absolute trust in her. And I'm able to say, I need you to do this. If you need help with the task, ask me. Otherwise, I just expect you to do it, and you do it how you think you need to do it. It doesn't have to be done my way. And that was another thing that was probably good for me is my dad telling me that, hey, let them do it. If there's a certain way that needs to be done, then you give them that instruction. But if it just needs to be done, let them do it and stay out of the way. And that has served me well.
Was it hard?
Oh, absolutely. Because you see projects and you have the end goal in mind, but you also think this is how it should be done. But, that adage about there's a lot of ways to skin the cat is true. And to me, when I finally realized that it doesn't have to be my way, because that's not the way, that's just my way. And my way isn't always the only way. And so for me, once I finally was willing is probably the best word, willing to allow somebody else to do that work and get the finished product that we ultimately just needed, it made me way more efficient.
When did you realize you were building more than just a business, that this could become real lasting wealth?
That actually took me a long time, John. I don't think I had the vision that my dad did. And obviously his was probably based on wisdom, experience, some of those things that I didn't have. So I think it took some time. He basically stepped away from the business in 2002 to go do some church service for 3 years. And so I was left to run the business on my own. And that's when I started to see that if you do these things and you continue to build the business, hey, there's an opportunity that this could really grow into something that you either continue through your family, the legacy part of that, or it could be something that could help my family down the road financially, even if I decided to sell it. So it did take me a while.
So he really was involved for a good solid 4 or 5 years and then kind of stayed involved but left you to run it.
Yeah, when he came back, he wanted to get more involved, but in the 3 years that he was gone, our industry had changed significantly, and he realized in a client meeting that he was about to give old advice that wasn't correct advice, and I really respect the fact that he said, "You know what? I need to step away." And so he helped me more on the management side. He got away from client-facing duties because the compliance in my world is a very big thing as it is in yours. You have to do it right, and he realized I might not be able to do that, and so he said the time for me to step away is now, and so he did.
Great mentor. What's one belief about wealth or success that's completely changed for you over the years?
Well, one thing that I didn't really understand is it takes money to make money, right? I mean, that was one of the things when our business started to grow and we started to make, decent incomes, one of the things he said is, "You'll start now to be presented with opportunities to invest." And I said, "What do you mean? Why all of a sudden?" He said, "People kinda know who have money." And, he was right. Almost immediately, people started saying, "Hey, I have this opportunity. Are you interested?" And he said, "You have to be very discriminating about what you do because not everybody that comes with you with an idea is a good idea." And
Right.
that I think that was the thing that kinda surprised me the most.
Yeah, that's a really good one. And discerning about how much to continue to pour back into your company, right? And diversify amongst that. So, what's one thing you've put in place to protect what you've built, whether it's personal or inside the business?
Well, insurance. I mean, that's a big one. Before we went on
You
air.
mean life insurance, right?
Yeah, and
Yep.
disability insurance,
And disability. Okay.
truthfully. Before we went on air, we talked about my father just passed away, and this morning I called the life insurance company about a policy we put in place for him 20 something years ago that is gonna pay my mother a significant amount of money to help her and with the estate. And look, I don't kid myself that I was that smart 20 years ago. We just knew we needed to do it when my dad was leaving the country for 3 years, but it's one of the best decisions we made because now my mother will not have any financial worries going forward, and I feel very proud of that. But again, my dad helped me with that decision. That wasn't just me, so I don't wanna take all the credit, but today, I'm very grateful for that decision.
Yeah. When we hear people pass away, whether you're in the life insurance business like I'm in, or the insurance business that you're in or not, and you hear that someone passed away, very shortly after hearing the news, the question comes up, or the statement, I should say, comes up, man, I hope they had enough insurance, right? It's
Very
almost inevitable that that comes up.
And one of the sad things to me, John, is I became an obituary reader years ago, and I won't go into the reason why, but I read the obituaries every day. And one of the things that's so sad to me is when at the end of the obituary, there's a GoFundMe posted because the family didn't make arrangements. And to me, that's a shame on them that they didn't take care of what they needed to take care of years ago. And that's disappointing to me. And as somebody in the insurance industry, not life insurance like you, it just kind of makes me sad that there is an easy way to do it, but you have to plan and do it. It doesn't just happen.
Yeah. And we always think, well, it's never going to happen to me. Like it happens to other people, but it's never going to happen to me. And I think that's a whole nother conversation for another time, but it's really difficult to get people to truly insure as you well know, insure the value of their assets. So back to the business side of things, some owners view their company as their retirement plan, and then others try to build wealth separately apart from their company. How do you think about that? And how do you think about that for yourself?
So I was one who I think initially didn't really realize what the value of a business was in terms of your wealth creation. And to me, it was a job. I'm making a paycheck. It provides for my family. And yes, I was able to save and put some money aside. I think as I grew older, I realized that it really can be an asset that can be that another protection, if you will, for my family. But because I was generating enough income, I was able to then to start say, you know what, I need to start looking outside of my business as a way. I have a friend who calls it mailbox money. How do you
Mm,
build mailbox money? It's not what I'm doing every day when I go to work, but how do I get checks in the mail every month? And so I try to do a combination of both. I'm still trying to grow my business because, when the time to step away is there, the bigger I make it, the more money I can sell it for. I have 6 children. I hired a son-in-law 10 years ago that was gonna be my retirement plan. He lasted 10 weeks, said, "It's too hard, I can't do it." And I'd rather know now than 10 years from now, right? And
Yeah.
so none of my sons have really shown an interest, which is fine. So, my plan will be to sell it at some point, but that is an important part of what my future plans are, is to sell it. I'm not ignoring the things outside of it as well.
No, that's awesome. And to that point, if someone walked in tomorrow and offered you a huge buyout, eight-figure buyout, huge, what would you already need to be in place for you to feel ready to walk away tomorrow?
Wow. I don't know if I know how to answer that, John. Because I'm getting older, and my wife and I have started talking about what does retirement mean. And retirement to me doesn't mean necessarily not working. It means flexibility and freedom. You can kind of do what you want when you want. And for years, I thought maybe I'd like to just work part time. And the only way I could do that is if I'm just managing the business, not really working with clients. Which that's the thing I like the most, is working with my clients, right?
Mhm.
But to the example of my father, if unless I'm in the business all day, every day, and staying up to date, I do my clients a disservice. And so I'm not sure what I initially thought would be my plan, work part-time and, keep dabbling in. I don't know if that's going to work. I think it's going to have to be, look, you're either in or you're out. And so that's kind of how I would answer that. So,
Okay. Interesting. How do you think about creating liquidity or flexibility? You talked about the flexibility. How do you think about creating that so you can choose your next chapter without being locked into having to do everything day to day in the business?
some of that is that mailbox money. Right?
Okay.
If you are
Yeah.
generating income, and it doesn't matter to me, when I was a younger person, a real good friend and I talked about, "What's your number?" He asked me,
Mm.
like, "What do you mean?" He said, "If you had this number, whatever this number is, would you feel comfortable you could retire?" Well, gosh, 20 years ago, the number we both said, $2 million. That sounded like so much money. If I could have $2 million in assets, I think I'm gold. Well, as you have kids, as you have, a bigger home, more expenses, and just all these things, you're like, "Man, 2 million is
Uh-oh.
done. I've got to do more." And so
Yeah.
to me, that's what's the important thing about these outside investments, or how do you develop additional cash flow, when you do step away, so that you can continue the lifestyle to whatever degree you want it. I don't think I have an extravagant lifestyle, but I know my wife is not all of a sudden going to quit ordering on Amazon if I stop working. I mean, there is still a need to make sure the bills get paid. So,
Absolutely. So, looking ahead, how are you thinking about the next 10 to 20 years, but not just in the business, but personally and financially?
well, I do have some active investments that are going well, that I think are going to provide for me. I don't know if I'm okay to talk about what you and I have done together, because that is an important piece for me. When I met you, I don't remember, it was 4 or 5 years ago at a conference, and I was intrigued by what you did. The thing that was probably the most intriguing was I could develop an asset without any of my funds. I didn't have to invest. I was invested myself, but somebody else was gonna invest for me, and that
Mhm.
is a very important part of what my wife and I's plan is. We still have a few years down the road, before, the life insurance plan kinda pays off as we've structured it. We're doing things to make sure that we're ready to get to that, right? That's gonna be a windfall, and that honestly is gonna change my family for generations.
Man, that feels good to hear. I'm
Well,
glad.
yes, and my wife and I have started to talk about, how much do you leave your children? And that's an interesting conversation to have, because I can tell you some of my children, I think they would do good with that. But I have some that I'm not so sure, that it would be more a curse than a blessing. And that's a real thing that my wife and I are talking about. So we may set up a foundation or some other vehicle in which we can donate to causes that we choose to help others. So it won't just be my family that will benefit from this decision. It will be many others. And I'm excited about that chapter, because philanthropy, I think, is such a blessing to so many people. But I think about the satisfaction that you as an individual have, especially if you get to do things anonymously to just help people. I'm really excited about that.
That's all. That's so good. And there's things that you can do with trust creation where you can treat every child differently or every beneficiary differently. And I know you know this, but for the viewers and listeners, You can create a trust where you can just give a windfall to a beneficiary because you know and trust that they're going to do the right thing with the money. If you have other beneficiaries where you're like, well, they're just going to go and burn it in the next, year, you can set up safeguards and not traps, but gates for them to go through where, let's say, they can take a distribution from their inheritance that's equal to their earned income, their W-2 income or their 1099 income, right? Or you can say they can get a certain amount every year up until a certain age. You can also do the family foundation that you mentioned, where you can employ your children, some of them, all of them, to receive a salary from the foundation, but they have a mandate that you and your wife set up before you passed away on what kind of nonprofits and charities that foundation can invest in. It becomes the family foundation. So there's quite a few things that you can do, but yeah, that's the next phase of thinking about that, right?
And I would tell you, John, as a younger man, that never, ever entered my mind, ever, that would be something that I would have an opportunity. And I really do call it an opportunity to get to participate in. I mean, it's a blessing to say that I've been blessed with enough that I can now not just take care of me, my family, my extended family, but others, strangers even oftentimes, that is a real blessing. And I never, ever as a younger man considered that as a possibility. But as I get older, I'm excited about that. I think that's going to be a huge blessing for my wife and I.
Well, here's another one for you. If fast forward 20 years from now, 25 years from now, and your kids and your family are listening to this podcast, what's one lesson you'd want them to take away from your approach to wealth and legacy?
Well, number one, I would say be conservative, right? It can be easy come, easy go, but you've got to be. I mean, my wife and I have set up some guardrails just with ourselves and how we're investing and what we're willing to spend money on today, because we're still looking to the future. I still have two kids at home that and I've got one who's serving a service mission for our church so I got three to send to college still, right? So I've got expense coming up that I want to help them with. And so my wife and I have said we've got to be conservative in what we do today because we want to be ready. Now, do I think we're going to run out all of a sudden? No, because my wife isn't as I joke about the Amazon, but she's not a super spender, and I'm grateful for that, and neither am I. But we have plenty. We don't buy everything we want, and maybe I'll just tell you a funny story. When my oldest daughter was probably, I don't know, 12 or 13, she wanted something or wanted us to do something, and I said we can't afford that. And she said, "Do you mean we can't afford that or you just won't spend the money?" You're right. We could pay for that. We have the money to pay for that. But I said, if we paid for everything or bought everything that we want when we wanted, how do we pay for college? How would we pay for Christmas? What would we do for birthdays? How would we take trips? I started going through all these things, and she kind of looked at me like, "Do you have to pay attention to that?" I'm like, "Well, yeah, as a grown up, you do. You can't spend everything you make or you'll never have anything. When we have emergencies, we have money sufficient to overcome the emergency. And that's some of what you have to plan on. As a kid, obviously, you don't think about that kind of stuff. But as an adult, you're like, oh my gosh, how am I ever going to pay for all the stuff that's going on all the time? And as I said, I've got six kids. That's a lot of expense for six kids. Trust me.
I just got back from a vacation with only two kids. I only have two kids, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. I can't imagine six kids. Does your daughter remember that conversation?
She does. In fact, one of the most satisfying things to me is about 10 years ago, she started her own business and it's been very successful. And she has come back around. We had the time where, dad don't tell me what to do, as a young married woman. And I want to be my own person, which, hey, great. And the older she got, the more she said, Dad, I should have talked to you a little more. And I'm like, look, we all go through that. We want to, flex our own muscles or spread our own wings and say, "Hey, I know how to do this." But she came back around and yeah, she told me how important it is to save. And I said, "Right?" So, it was very satisfying. But to me, I give credit to her that she recognized as a teenager, I'm totally selfish and I want this now. And I said, we all do, but you have to get past that.
Well, I mean, what a cool story and what a great lesson you and your wife have done for them. That's awesome. What's a blind spot you think most successful business owners overlook when it comes to protecting their wealth?
Well, the big thing is, so in my world, one of the things I sell is disability insurance. And I tell people don't be blind at what could happen. If all of a sudden you're out of the picture, what happens to number one, your business, and number two, what happens to your family, right? Those are things you have to think about. And I think most business owners are not selfish enough in taking care of themselves and their family first. When you own a business and you employ people, you see how much money goes out every day, week, month, whatever, however you account for it. And yes, most business owners can take money out of their business and do okay, but who is at risk all the time? It's the business owner. Tell business owners you need to be selfish. You protect you, because if you're gone, the business is gone. And now what's your family going to do? So
How do you get them to overlook the cost of that disability insurance? Let's just focus on that since you brought that up. The premium as an expense that they cannot afford or would rather not pay.
yeah, and John, I wouldn't say I've got a perfect answer for that, because not every one of the businesses I work with have disability insurance, or especially enough disability insurance on the owner. So I just want to pre-qualify what I'm going to say. But my big thing is, if you can't come to work, and most business owners, it's going to be a total disability.
Right.
It's not because, look, I just don't feel good. They understand what's involved in that business, and that's what I try and then go back to them and say, look, it's probably going to be some kind of a brain injury, right?
Hmm.
Literally can't work, because you built this business because you liked it and you want to work in it.
Right.
So if you can't, then what? And so
Right.
I'm just trying to get them to think about then what. And
Yeah.
like sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
Such an interesting conversation we could really dig into. Um, but yeah, to get business owners to be selfish, like you said, think selfishly. And it's not selfishly for them, it's selfishly for your family, right?
But
That's really,
I don't use selfish in a negative sense,
no, no, no. Yeah, yeah.
because in most cases we think about our employees first. That's what we
Hmm.
do. And that's a great thing. I think that's why they're loyal to us and they stay, all these things. But I also say, as the business owner, you sometimes have to be selfish. And we have some different kinds of plan offerings that we can show to them. Some take it right away. They say, oh, yes, that's a good thing. I want to do that. Others like, if I can't do it for everybody, I don't want to do it for me. And I'm like, look, I'm not going to tell you how to run your business. I'm
Yeah.
just saying, when everything goes bad, everybody else can walk away. You can't, right? You've got liability for things. And that's why I say you need to be selfish. You need to look out for yourself too. What else can you do to protect you and your family?
What's something you know now about business or wealth that you wish you had understood a decade ago?
Start doing something today. Don't wait. I mean, the time value of money is,
Ah, there you go.
it
Yeah.
is just, gosh, when I was a young man, I worked my way all the way through college. I worked in a warehouse while I was going to school. So I'm working 40 plus hours a week in a warehouse and going to school at night. And it was hard. And I remember when I left that job, I had a little bit of money in my 401k, and we took it out and spent it.
Mm,
Right? I just didn't appreciate that, man. If I had have left that alone 30 years ago, it doesn't matter how much it was, there's gonna be a lot more today, and I didn't appreciate that, and I don't know who to blame for that. I mean, myself mainly, but I wish my dad had talked to me about that. It was just something I didn't
yeah.
talk to him about. But man, money, if you start today, it's amazing what can happen to it if you invest it and leave it alone.
And what the other side of that is when you say, well, I'll just wait 5 or 10 years, man, that 5 or 10 years goes by so fast.
Mhm.
And before you know it, 15 years have gone by, right?
One thing my dad said to me as a young man, again, I didn't appreciate it till I got a little older, but he said, look, every time you get a raise, you'll spend it all if you don't make yourself not. And I said, what do you mean?
Hmm.
He said, it doesn't matter what you're earning. If you get a 10% raise, you can increase your standard of living by 10%, just quickly. He said, but if you say, look, I'm going to enjoy some of this, I'm going to 5%, but I'm going to save that additional five. You won't miss the five, and you can enjoy some of the fruits of your labors with the five. And I took that to heart. As I was working for the insurance company and started to make more money, we didn't spend it all. I took my dad's advice, and he was exactly right. You don't miss what you don't have.
All right, you ready for a couple questions in a lightning round before
Sure.
we wrap it up?
Yep.
All right. One book that changed how you view business or wealth?
Good to great.
Ooh, that's a good one. Have you ever read The Richest Man in Babylon?
I've started it and I've not finished it, but
That's a good one
I
too.
need to
That
go back to that.
that
How to have
previous
one other
story
one? How to win friends and influence people. Just
by
if you're
Dale
gonna deal
Carnegie,
with people.
right?
Yes, if you're
Yeah.
gonna deal with people, it's a great book.
Yeah, that's a good one. The richest man in Babylon, I was thinking about your dad's advice to you. If you always carve out 10% for yourself, you can live on 9/10 of your salary just the same as you can live on 10/10, right?
Like you said, you always have to pay yourself. If you're not willing
Yeah,
to pay yourself, you're never going to get ahead. You won't.
yeah,
And he's right.
yeah, he is. All right, one myth about entrepreneurship you'd love to bust.
You have to have experience to do it.
Ooh, that's a good one.
And I'll tell you why. As I was going to college, I met a guy that we worked in the warehouse together. We were going to school together, and he could not wait to get out. We worked for a Fortune 50 company. It was a huge company, 50 or 60,000 employees. And my goal was to get a sales job for them. He said, I can't wait to get out here and start my own business. I'm kind of like, start your own business? That's so scary. Well, 30 years later, he's done so well. And I'm in business for myself. And I credit him. His name was David. I said, David, if you only knew how influential what you said to me was. I never considered it, but then I would think about David, and I knew David did it. I could do it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. You don't need experience. If you could whisper one sentence to yourself 10 years ago, what would it be?
Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. And
That's
it'll work
awesome.
out.
That's awesome. I mean, the vibe of what you're saying is just start, just go, just do it. Do it as soon as you think about it. Don't wait, whether it's investing or starting your business or things like that. But, you know, also back to the very beginning, let $10 an hour people do $10 an hour work. I think I'm going to keep remembering that too, as well. That's a really good
I
one.
know it sound negative, but you hire
No,
people to do certain things and they can do them,
yeah.
right? Let them do them.
Kudos to your dad, Brett,
Yeah.
for real.
Yeah.
Your ability to bridge employer needs with value first benefits. I mean, it's really, you've done a great job. And how you've raised your family, you and your wife, how you've raised your 6 kids. I know many business owners will resonate with how you've reimagined, how you run your business and how you view your wealth and your legacy. I really appreciate you joining us, and let's keep the conversation going and have you on at another time so we can do part B of Bret Kinghorn.
I would love to. And John, I have to give a shout out. My partnership with you has been a game changer for me and for my family. I mean, it has. And I'm talking to my friends because I believe in it. I believe in it. And
Thank you.
so I'm one of these that tries to give credit where credit is due. And, I thank the Lord I met you. It's a good thing for me. So
Well, thank you
we're
for
partners.
saying that. That wasn't the purpose of this, but
I get
thank
it.
you for
I
saying
get
that.
it. But I want you to know. And one of the things I practice, John, is called gratitude.
Mm,
And it's enriched my life. When you tell people thank you for things that they've done, it blesses me. Now,
mm.
I can tell you, hey, thanks. This has been so great. But I have found such satisfaction in telling people thank you. It has changed my life. And so I want to say thank you.
Well, and I also want to say thank you to you for being a great client, being a great friend, and a great business owner that I can bounce ideas off of. Greatly appreciate it. Brett, thanks for joining.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
See ya.
All right. Bye. Thank you.